Welcome back to our channel, where we dive deep into the heart of Genoa City. Today is a beautiful day to unpack the explosive drama, psychological warfare, and heartbreaking twists heading our way on The Young and the Restless. Grab your favorite beverage, settle in, and let us explore the profound emotional landscapes of our favorite characters as they navigate their darkest hours. Genoa City is currently a pressure cooker of unresolved trauma, bitter vendettas, and sudden physical deterioration. The Newman family, a dynasty built on absolute power and calculated resilience, is facing a multi-front war that threatens to tear them apart from the inside out. As we look ahead to the upcoming episodes, the psychological toll of these relentless battles is becoming impossible to ignore. The air is thick with anticipation, suffocating fear, and the undeniable reality that the past is never truly buried. We are about to witness a convergence of storylines that will test the physical and mental limits of Victor Newman, his fiercely protective wife Nikki, their deeply troubled son Nick, and the ever-resilient Sharon Newman. The stakes have never been higher, as the looming shadow of Matt Clark continues to darken their doorstep, bringing with it a wave of chaos that will leave absolutely no one unscathed. To understand the impending storm, we must first delve into the fragile and highly volatile psyche of Patty Williams. Patty is a woman whose entire existence has been defined by a desperate, insatiable need for validation and love, often manifesting in dangerous, all-consuming obsessions. When Matt Clark, a man she viewed as a kindred spirit in societal alienation, flatly rejects her offer of safe passage and companionship, it strikes at the very core of her deepest, unhealed trauma. Matt's refusal to accept her help is not just a strategic decision on his part. To Patty, it is a visceral, humiliating rejection that echoes the countless times she has been cast aside and forgotten. Most notably by Jack Abbott. Her fragile ego shatters under the weight of his dismissal, and in that shattered state, her profound vindictiveness takes the wheel. Patty does not simply walk away from rejection, she orchestrates a symphony of vengeance. Driven by a toxic cocktail of humiliation and a twisted desire to prove her worth, Patty makes a fateful decision. She picks up the phone and dials Victor Newman. This is a masterclass in psychological manipulation and self-preservation. By handing Victor the exact location of his most hated enemy, Patty is attempting to regain a sense of ultimate control and power. She wants to prove to Matt that walking away from her was the most fatal mistake of his entire life. We can expect Patty to reveal Matt's final known coordinates, effectively setting a lethal trap for the amnesiac fugitive. There is even a chilling possibility that Patty will physically trail Matt, lurking in the shadows of Genoa City, ensuring he remains in the crosshairs until Victor's highly trained security team descends upon him. However, Patty's plans are notoriously erratic, and the likelihood of this trap failing or spiraling into unforeseen collateral damage is incredibly high. On the other end of that phone call is Victor Newman, a patriarch whose need to protect his family is matched only by his absolute ruthlessness. For Victor, the hunt for Matt Clark is not merely about achieving justice, it is about re-establishing the absolute dominance and impenetrable security of the Newman Empire. Matt has terrorized his children, specifically Nick and Sharon, and has repeatedly slipped through Victor's fingers, mocking his authority. When Patty provides the geographical key to Matt's capture, Victor's predatory instincts are fully ignited. He does not care about Patty's underlying motives or her fragile mental state. He only sees the objective. Victor's psychology is rooted in absolute control. When his family is threatened, he becomes a cold, calculating machine. The anticipation of finally cornering Matt Clark will drive Victor to mobilize his forces with terrifying precision, setting the stage for a confrontation that could alter the fabric of Genoa City forever. As Victor prepares his elaborate snare for Matt, a crucial strategy meeting convenes, bringing together Victor, Nick Newman, Sharon Newman, Noah Newman, and Sienna Bacall. The atmosphere in this room is suffocatingly tense, heavy with the weight of unspoken fears. Each individual carries their own profound trauma related to Matt Clark. Noah and Sienna are grappling with the violent aftermath of Las Vegas and the terrifying realization that their nightmare is not over, while Sharon is forced to confront the living, breathing manifestation of her past abuser. But the most tragic figure in this room is undeniably Nick Newman. Nick is sitting at that table, participating in the tactical discussions, while fighting a horrific, invisible war within his own body. He is desperately trying to project strength, to be the reliable son, the protective father, and the steadfast partner, all while his system is being ravaged by his severe, escalating addiction to fentanyl. Nick's psychological state during this meeting is a tragic paradox. He is surrounded by the people who love him most in the world, yet he has never been more entirely isolated. The sheer willpower required to sit through a strategy meeting about the man who facilitated his addiction, while actively experiencing the agonizing physical demands of that very addiction, is unimaginable. Nick is wearing a carefully constructed mask of competence, but beneath the surface, his body is screaming for relief. The toxic substances coursing through his veins have severely compromised his nervous system, his heart, and his cognitive functions. He is a ticking time bomb, and the tragic irony is that his family, so intensely focused on the external threat of Nat Clark, is largely oblivious to the internal threat that is actively destroying Nick from the inside out. The breaking point arrives with devastating, heart-stopping suddenness. Amidst the intense discussions and the heavy weight of their collective trauma, Nick steps away to make a phone call. Perhaps it is a moment of overwhelming anxiety, or perhaps his body simply cannot process the chemical toxicity any longer. Without warning, Nick's eyes roll back, his knees buckle, and he collapses violently to the floor, losing all consciousness. This is not a dramatic swoon, it is a terrifying, catastrophic medical emergency. The sickening thud of his body hitting the ground shatters the strategic focus of the room, instantly plunging the Newman family into a state of absolute, visceral panic. The war against Nat Clark vanishes in an instant, replaced by the horrifying reality that Nick is dying right in front of them. For Sharon Newman, witnessing Nick's sudden collapse is a trauma that cuts deeper than any physical wound. Sharon and Nick share a profound, unbreakable bond forged through decades of intense love, devastating loss, and shared suffering. When she sees the man she loves crumple to the floor, lifeless and completely unresponsive, her reaction is pure, unfiltered terror. She rushes to his side, her hands frantically searching for a pulse, her voice screaming his name in a desperate, tear-soaked plea for him to wake up. Sharon's psychology is deeply rooted in her role as a fiercely protective caregiver and a resilient survivor. Seeing Nick, the strong, protective center of her universe, reduced to such a fragile, broken state will undoubtedly trigger a profound emotional earthquake within her. The chaos of the room fades away, leaving only the agonizing, suffocating fear of losing him forever. To truly understand the gravity of this horrifying moment, we must look at the underlying cause of Nick's physical failure. In my opinion, this is how Nick Newman is protecting himself from pain, by numbing the excruciating emotional agony of his perceived failures, the immense, suffocating pressure of living up to the Newman legacy, and the raw, unhealed trauma inflicted by Nat Clark. Nick has always tried to be the moral compass of his family, the one who stands apart from Victor's ruthless, often illegal machinations. But the weight of that expectation, combined with the terrifying vulnerability of being targeted by a monster like Nat, became entirely too much to bear. The fentanyl was not a choice of recreation or thrill-seeking, it was a desperate, tragic mechanism of psychological survival. It was a way to silence the deafening roar of his own anxiety and to escape a reality that had become entirely too painful to endure. Nick's collapse is the inevitable, devastating culmination of this tragic coping mechanism. The human body can only withstand so much chemical abuse before it fundamentally shuts down. The continuous, heavy use of fentanyl, especially the tainted batches he was exposed to in Las Vegas, has wreaked absolute havoc on his internal organs, his cardiovascular system, and his neurological pathways. This terrifying incident is a brutal, undeniable wake-up call for the entire Newman family. It completely shatters the illusion that Nick can simply power through his addiction without patient meetings and sheer willpower. The harsh reality is that Nick requires immediate, lockdown, professional medical intervention if he is to survive. The chaos of his collapse will force his loved ones to confront the terrifying severity of his disease, stripping away all their denial. While Nick's physical crisis is explosive and immediate, another Newman is suffering a quieter, but equally terrifying, physical breakdown across town. Nikki Newman, the elegant and fiercely protective matriarch of the family, is battling a severe health issue of her own. For days, she has been plagued by a persistent, excruciating headache. This is not a standard tension headache, it is a debilitating, blinding pain that completely disorients her and drains her of her usual formidable strength. During a meeting with her daughter, Victoria Newman, in a private room at the Genoa City Athletic Club, Nikki's carefully maintained facade of control begins to crumble. She is visibly struggling, wincing in absolute agony, her words slurring slightly as the intense pain overwhelms her cognitive functions. Nikki's psychological profile is deeply intertwined with her physical health. She is a woman who internalizes the immense trauma of her family. The extreme stress of Victor's relentless corporate and personal wars, the terrifying reality of Nick's life-threatening addiction, and the constant, looming threat of enemies like Nat Clark have created a highly toxic environment for her nervous system. It is highly probable that this excruciating headache is a direct physical manifestation of her profound psychological distress. The human body keeps the score, and Nikki's body is screaming under the crushing weight of the Newman family's collective burdens. She is trying desperately to hold her fractured family together, but the monumental effort is quite literally tearing her apart from the inside. Watching her mother suffer is a deeply unsettling and terrifying experience for Victoria Newman. Victoria is used to seeing Nikki as an unshakable pillar of strength, a woman who can weather any emotional storm with grace and absolute steel. Seeing Nikki so disoriented, highly vulnerable, and in obvious, severe physical pain triggers a profound sense of alarm within Victoria. Her analytical mind immediately begins racing through the terrifying diagnostic possibilities. Is this a symptom of severe stress and exhaustion, or is it the harbinger of a much darker, more insidious medical diagnosis? Victoria knows her mother's medical history intimately, and the sudden, aggressive return of these blinding headaches is a massive red flag that simply cannot be ignored or brushed aside. However, Victoria's deepest, most paralyzing fear is rooted in Nikki's long, highly publicized, and tragic battle with alcoholism. Victoria knows that for an addict, severe physical pain and overwhelming emotional stress are the ultimate, most dangerous triggers for relapse. She watches her mother wince in agony and cannot help but wonder, will Nikki turn to the bottle to numb this excruciating pain? The fear is palpable and suffocating. If Nikki's physical suffering becomes unbearable, the temptation to seek the immediate, numbing embrace of alcohol might prove entirely too strong to resist. A relapse at this critical juncture, with Nick actively fighting for his life and Victor entirely consumed by his violent vendetta against Matt Clark, would be a catastrophic blow that could permanently fracture the Newman family beyond repair. As we look at the broader canvas of Genoa City, the convergence of these crises is truly Shakespearean in its tragedy. The Newman family is facing a multi-pronged assault on their physical and mental well-being. Victor is locked in a predatory, obsessive hunt for Matt Clark, aided by the unstable and vindictive Patty Williams. Nick is fighting a losing battle against a lethal addiction, culminating in a terrifying physical collapse that traumatizes Sharon and his entire family in the strategy room. And Nikki is suffering from an agonizing, mysterious physical ailment that threatens to push her back into the darkest depths of her alcoholism. The interconnectedness of their profound suffering highlights the extreme vulnerability of a family that projects absolute invincibility to the outside world. The psychological aftermath of these impending events will be absolutely monumental for everyone involved. Sharon will be forced to transition from a place of lingering fear regarding Matt Clark to a place of desperate, clinical caregiving for Nick. She will have to confront the heartbreaking reality that the man she loves is fundamentally broken and requires professional salvation to survive. Victor will have to balance his insatiable thirst for vengeance against the terrifying reality that his son and his wife are physically deteriorating right in front of his eyes. Will his obsession with capturing Matt Clark blind him to the critical medical emergencies happening within his own home? And Victoria will be thrust into the role of the reluctant matriarch, forced to monitor her mother's fragile sobriety while managing the massive corporate empire that is constantly under siege. Ultimately, the upcoming episodes of The Young and the Restless promise to be a masterclass in deeply emotional, character-driven storytelling. The physical collapses of Nick and Nikki are not just medical emergencies, they are profound, devastating metaphors for the emotional collapse of a family buckling under the immense weight of its own legacy and trauma. The hunt for Matt Clark may provide the external action and suspense, but the true drama lies in the intense internal battles being fought by these beloved characters. As we watch Sharon scream for Nick to wake up, as we watch Victoria desperately try to ease her mother's pain, and as we watch Victor prepare his lethal trap, we are reminded of the fragile, beautiful, and deeply tragic nature of the human experience. Genoa City is bracing for impact, and the shockwaves of this explosive week will be felt for years to come.